Thor, God of thunder, God of war, modern superhero. He wields the hammer Mjolnir, a weapon of awesome power.
The hammer of Thor can hit the earth with amazing force, amazing and dramatic.
A sighting in the skies above the U.S. sparks fears we may be witnessing the awesome power of Thor striking from the heavens. But this Thor is no god. November 18th, 2009. In the skies above Utah and Nevada, witnesses see something they can't identify streak through the atmosphere.
A light brighter than the sun suddenly appears.
The burning orange light grows bigger and brighter as it passes overhead.
This is far faster than a bullet.
Finally, it impacts somewhere in the desert, lighting up the sky.
We're dealing with extremely powerful forces here.
Officials explain that the blinding flash was an exploding meteor, but the people of Nevada have seen flashes like this before. And it had nothing to do with meteorites. In the late 1940s, the fires in the sky were atomic tests, and they continued for decades. But the nuclear tests of the Cold War era left telltale traces. After the 2009 event, there is neither the fallout of a nuke nor any sign of the crater that a meteor would leave.
This is weird, it just doesn't make any sense.
A possible answer to the mystery emerges when news leaks that in the months before the incident, NASA launched a rocket under conditions of total secrecy.
It's a Boeing Delta IV rocket, one of the few heavy-lift vehicles that NASA has capable of getting a large payload into orbit. The launch takes place at night. There's a total media blackout, and NASA isn't saying what's on board.
A NASA observer tracks the trajectory to the Dugway Proving Ground, a military test facility. The appearance of fireballs in the sky after the secret rocket launch makes some locals suspect their backyard is being used to test weapons once again, but not for nukes. Among the many incredible devices the U.S. military has created, there is at least one actual design for a space weapon that could create the spectacle witnesses saw in the skies over Utah and Nevada. Its name is Thor.
One of the first things you learn about space and war, take the high ground, boy, or they'll kick hell out of you in the valleys. And that's just an extension of that, to take the high ground.
Jerry Pournelle is most famous for writing amazing science fiction, but he has an interesting past.
Before Jerry Pournelle became a famous sci-fi writer, he was working at Boeing in the 50s, and this notion of Project Thor is one of his ideas.
Project Thor. Like the hammer of the god, it is a simple but devastatingly effective concept.
You take about a 20-foot chunk of a telephone pole made out of high tungsten steel, and you put GPS receiver in it. You put that sucker into orbit, and there isn't any target on Earth I can't destroy with it.
It's pretty simple. If you have something big in space and you drop it down to Earth, it's going to have a huge amount of kinetic energy when it arrives.
There isn't much defense. In fact, there is no defense. You're Saddam Hussein and you build yourself a bunker 30 feet underground, right? Pretty hard to get you out of there. Not with Thor, it isn't. Basically, if I can see it, I can kill it within half an hour.
Taking out a hard target like an underground bunker would usually require the messy, destructive power of a nuke. Thor brings all the power, but with pinpoint precision and no radioactive fallout.
If you can deliver an object at 12,000 feet per second, I don't need a warhead. It's not radioactive at all. It's just momentum energy. There's no explosion as you think of an explosion. It isn't mass that makes a big hole in the ground, it's how fast it's moving.
No warning, no emanations, no radar, very difficult to detect and almost impossible to stop. The impact would be amazing and dramatic.
With just a few of these Project Thor platforms in space, you could deliver material on target almost anywhere in the world within a few minutes.
It could probably level half a city block with a single impact.
In the 1950s, the cost of deploying payloads as heavy as Project Thor by rocket was prohibitive. So, according to official sources, the project was dropped. But it wasn't forgotten.
During the 70s, the Air Force actually did a serious project on the design, and I'm told that something was done during the 90s, too.
The desire to have a weapon system like Thor operational drove the development of experimental spacecraft capable of flying into orbit and returning to Earth.
That's why we tried to develop a reusable spaceship. Then something like Thor became much cheaper, much more practical.
This 1993 footage is from experiments of the DCX rockets at White Sands Test Range.
The Air Force built DCX, which was a scale model of a fully reusable single-stage orbit ship. We flew 11 missions. Didn't fly them high, but we flew them, proved the concept.
It's looking good. Translation's looking good.
But ultimately, the idea was too ambitious to achieve with 1990s technology.
NASA took it over after the Air Force flew it 11 times and wrecked it on the first mission.
And the project faded into obscurity.
Officially, there is no Project Thor. It's deemed too expensive to get these tungsten telephone poles up into orbit, but that doesn't mean it's not happening in a black budget somewhere.
Most of the Department of Defense's spending on space weaponry development is classified, but reports on its unclassified budget suggest that since the year 2000, spending on space weapons has grown by over $1 billion every year. And a recent U.S. Air Force document outlining future space weapons contains a reference to hypervelocity rods.